All right, we're going to start up. The good news is I've got virtually everything working. And I'll show you what I did to get it to work. Also, I have copy of everything. My GitHub repository has been updated and it works. So we're going to go over this stuff, but first let me just show you before we even talk about it. Let me show it to you. I used Postman. So what I did first of all was, and this is the top thing I gave you, you can feel free to add this to yours if you want to. I added some records, so we had something in there. All right. So now if I go in there and I just go into employees here, this one already worked, but just so you look, when you click send, of course it wouldn't work now. Of course you don't use a delete on that, but that's why. So send. So there's me, Angie, etc. And I did throw another employee in there. Yours looks different. It says employee to manipulate on the bottom. All right. But if you look at this, and I got it here too, so let me just bring it up on here. All right. This is an insert many. An insert one, as you probably guess, allows you to insert a single record. An insert many allows you to insert multiple records. So for this simple example, I left the default date in for everybody. We could have put that in, and I'll show you an example in just a minute with that date. All right. But so and I just filled in stuff for all of us. Okay. And I don't know who's making the most money. Looks like Angie is. Hopefully nobody's offended. Then change yours. All right, if you don't like, no, Gabriel's making the most. Okay, but if you want, change anything you want. This is just meant for you to have a starting point, for lack of better words. So that is showing everybody right here. Okay, so that's everybody. All right, then I'm just going to go and I'll grab Aaron right here. I'll grab Aaron's ID, just his, and bring this back down. Okay, and come back in here and add his ID and send, and you notice I get just Aaron's information. Make sense? So those first two work with no problem. All right. Next, we had to insert a new record. Well, part of this was on me because I'm stupid. All right. But what you have to do when you insert is two things. If you look up on the screen here, you go to just employees right there. Then you've got to come in here and you've got to add a new employee using JSON. So to do that, you want to make sure, if you look on the screen here, you click body, you choose raw, and you choose JSON. All right? So I will come in here and put in a new employee right now. So it has to be within curly braces. So I'm going to come in here and I'll say, and both fields have to be in double quotes, so name, and we'll put somebody, and then a comma at the end, and department, and we'll put janitorial. All right, and salary, we'll say $55,000 a year. Not 550,000. No janitor, I don't think, is worth that much, except if the one person in California who won the lottery, if they're a janitor. So do you see what I did? So I came in here. I've got to make sure I change this to post. All right, and I'm putting in here just the URL. And here's my new employee. So if this works, my new employee should appear down here where Aaron currently is. All right, so I click send, and there's my new employee. Somebody, janitorial, 55,000. The hire date was today's date, and the ID. I'm not sure what that underscore V is. Sorry, you can look it up if you really care that much. So let's take somebody that we did right here. Now, I had problems with patch. So I went back to put, and it works. I don't like that, but it works. Now, I'm going to want to change here this somebody guy. Okay, so I'm going to put their I'm going to grab their ID, and I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to change this to put, all right? And instead of somebody, we'll call this I'm a janitor. All right? We'll leave the department the way it is. We'll leave the salary the way it is. Because when you use a put, you've got to add everything. All right? Except here, since we defaulted the date, we don't have to do that. All right? In fact, I think I had to put in the date too, now that I think about it. So let me put in there hire date. And we'll put in a date that was in the past. So I'm going to put in here 2019 12/12. All right? So when you look in here, what do I have? I need a comma there. That's why I'm getting the error. So I know that's a little bit hard for you to see, and I can't really bump up the size much. But I'm coming in here, I'm doing a put, and I'm saying for this person, which is the one I just added down here, I grab their ID. I'm changing their name from somebody to I'm a janitor. I'm keeping the department, but since it's a put, I've got to put it in. The salary, let's say that they got a slight salary bump, not slight, but we'll make it $65,000. All right, and I change their hire date. Everybody with me? All right, so I click in here. There's I'm a janitor, $65,000, and it's got the 2019 date. So right now, what I've quickly shown you are, I showed you the the get all, the get one, the insert, and the update, which again is for us, it's a put now. Now, just so you see this, if I come back here, I'm going to clear my screen, and if I do a db.employees.find, there's all my employees, including I'm a janitor, right there. Okay? Now, yours doesn't say Mary Smith. You've still got the employee to manipulate, department to manipulate, etc. But you can go back and change that if you want to. I'm going to get rid of Mary Smith here. All right? So I'm going to grab this ID, and I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to change this from put to delete, and I'm going to go in and change that accordingly. I don't need anything here, and with delete and with that chosen, I'm going to click send, and it says employee deleted. All right, and if I go back to here, you'll notice that I've got Mary Smith right there, but if I run that again, there's no more Mary Smith. So all 5 of these now work. All right, and I want to show you. I've given you. Don't worry about this thing on top with the employees, because that's just, you can add those so you've got some employees in here to start with. But I'm going to take this from the top on the second page here. It's a portrait page, and the first line is required.env.config. Can everybody see that? All right. So I'm going to go back to the program. So I want to show you what I did. And I did a whole bunch of stuff. All right. And I changed this. I changed that. Sometimes I changed something and it worked. Sometimes I changed something and it didn't work, etc. So let me clear. In fact, I can exit this. All right. So taking this from the top then. What you see here then on this line is the server.js file. Hopefully one of the things you notice is the brevity of the size of the file. It's only 30 lines. And it's only 30 lines because what we did in here was we got rid of all of the routes. Again, those are put into their own folder. All right, and their own file. Now, one thing I've noticed, and I think this is on me, it appears as if when you get out, so if you're in here, and when you're done, when you get out, if you don't exit, if you just click, click this, for example, to get out, it doesn't totally close the connection. That's why when you get that message that says that's already in use, usually that's what's happened. If you say, no, I clicked exit and it still didn't let me in, then all you have to do is, sometimes restarting Node will fix it, And if it still doesn't, then you've got to reboot your machine. Or, as I did, I changed this from 5678 to 5677. There's no significance to that number. Just want you to know that. All right, so we went over this yesterday, the required.env.config. Remember, that allowed us to go into our .env file, which was right here where we set this up. All right? Now, if you look on here too, I'm not sure if it needed this or not. 27017 is the default port that MongoDB runs on. All right? And sometimes when you use it, when you're doing MongoDB stuff, you need to put in the port number, and sometimes you don't. And I'm not sure why that is. I've never found a really good explanation in a book or anything that says, hey, because I've already had it where I have to use it, then I take it out and I don't need it, and then something happens and I need it again. So I'm not sure what that is behind that. All right. So we brought in Express, we brought in Mongoose, and I brought in Body Parser. I don't really think I even need Body Parser, but I brought it in anyway. So those are the three things. When I did the NPM I put in Express space Mongoose space Body dash Parser. Make sense to everybody? Yeah? Okay. And if you're going to use Body Parser, basically here, this sets up the middleware for it. All right? And it says that we're going to use JSON. So I could try to remove this and see if it still works. Hey, this thing works now. I don't want to fidget with it anymore. Okay? All right. Then in here, we went over this yesterday, but again, this is connecting. And again, we are using in here, that's going to go into our env file, and it's going to find from, in there. All right? And again, just so you know, this process.env right here, for lack of better words, it's the same one that I'm using here. So I could have put port in there if I wanted to. And I could have put it in there, it's just 5677, done that. All right? Okay, so we talked about this yesterday. We're telling it if there's any error connecting, it should show us the error. Also, it should show us, once we've connected, all right, it should show us that we've connected to the database. Okay? And then we added our middleware. In fact, now that I look at it, nope. I've got this middleware, and I probably would have been better off, if you look up on the screen here, taking this and moving it up. Because really, it's just an alignment type of thing. I should put all my middleware together. You see what I'm saying? I believe you should put your consts together when you can, all right, and put your middleware, etc. together. All right, I've got another thing here, but this one right here, I could move these to the top if I wanted to. Totally fine to do that. So I can Control X there, and then move this one down, and then move this app.use, so it's right there. Now, what I just didn't make the program work any better, but I've got some, I've got my require at the top, I've got a bunch of const statements together, then I've got my app.use statements together. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, sometimes, if you add certain things, the order will matter. I don't believe on here, I can double check it, but I don't believe on here the order is going to matter from what I just did. All right. Then we finally got our thing where we're listening for our port. Okay? Questions on anything that's in there? Anything that's in there that doesn't make sense? Because this is your time to ask, please. So I'm going to do a save because I just changed that. So that's the first thing. So let's go to the next page in there. This is the model, the employee model. All right? So again, when we do this, we start out by bringing in Mongoose with a const mongoose equals require. We don't have to connect again. You want to connect in the main part of your program, not here. So we're setting up a schema here. This is a name we give. Employee schema was just something that I gave. All right? So it equals new mongoose.schema. That S has to be capitalized. And then you want to come in here and say, these are the fields that you're going to have in here. So again, we've got a name field. As I told you before, we could have broken this up into first name and last name. Would have been totally fine. Notice that the first two fields are both of type string. The first field is required. The second field is not required. Then we've got salary, which is a numeric field, which again is not required. And finally, we've got hire date, which is a date field. It is required, but we can leave it off when we put in the date.now. All right? Also, when you set up something like this, remember to open up the communication, we have to both bring this in here, and we got to bring it in, wherever else it's going to be needed, which is going to be in our controller file. All right? But I want you to understand the reason that this is being done like this is we're not totally there yet. We will be in the next project. In the next project that we create, we're going to have a views folder. We're going to have a models folder. We're going to have a controllers folder. We will have all three pieces of the MVC architecture in our program. I will tell you, you may care about this, you may not care, but if you look please up on the screen, you know how this is called controllers? A lot of times what people do is they call them routes, because that's what we're putting in there are the different routes. So if you would rather call yours routes, call it routes. All right, it doesn't mean it's an MVR, a model view routes. It's still an MVC, but sometimes you'll see that called controllers. Sometimes you'll see it called routes. It really and truly isn't that big a thing one way or the other. All right. So next is this one printed in landscape mode right here. So I'd like to go over this. This is probably going to look similar to the one that you have, but my guess is not identical to the one you have. One thing I did, and maybe it looks ugly, but notice around each one of these, I put comments in there so I could delineate when a new one started. I just thought it looked, at first I thought it looked a little nicer. Maybe it looks worse, I don't know. But, so what do we have in here? We got to bring in Express. We've got to bring in Express.router. All right, and we have to bring, this is our communication link for that employee model.js thing that we just exported. All right. Okay, then we've got our get all. Probably there's very little to no difference between what I've got here and what you have. So in other words, we don't have to add anything, so we don't have to get an ID. All right. And so this is just done async because we don't know how many records there are and how long this will take. So we're doing async on this whole thing, but what we're awaiting on is this right there. And now that I look at it, could have had a semicolon there. All right? I mean, there's things I've missed in here too, I'm sure. So we're telling it with a try-catch in here to attempt to find everybody that's in the employee collection. So in other words, that line that you see right here, that line is the same thing as if we came in here and did db.employees.find. Does that make sense? It's the same thing. Because in both cases, it's giving us all of the employee records. All right? Okay. If there's a problem, we're assuming it's on the server end, so we're just going to print out the message. Now, you can try to kind of simulate problems here. For instance, this is my guess. I don't want to screw this program up because it works, but I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put an S in there. Purposely, I'm going to put an S in there for employees. All right? And then I'm going to come back over to here and I'm going to attempt to grab all of the employees. Whoops, keep going into the wrong one. And it'll be a get, but it should fail because I put the wrong name in there. So employees is not defined. So it's showing me the error message that it's giving based on in here on the mistake that I made. Plus, when you look, where is it? Does it show this? No, it's not even. Yeah, there's my 500. So I'm getting the internal server error. Does that all make sense? All right. Okay, so then next was the get one. This one is calling the middleware function that we wrote. I changed the name from get employee ID to get employee because it's returning a whole employee. Does that make sense? And I thought get employee ID was not a good name. I thought get employee was a better one. But it's still calling the same function as before. And then what we're saying here is just, hey, I just want that employee because it should only be returning to us the employee with that ID. Does that all make sense? Again, that's probably what you have, except yours says ID there. All right? So then jumping down to the create, I made a bunch of changes into this one. So what I have and what you have may be exactly the same or they may be different. I don't know. All right. So I'm coming in here with a post. I do not need to add that get employee because this is a brand new one. All right. We want to make sure we set our type to post. Again, this is going to be an async, and the await is when we try to save it. Again, we don't know. It would be at least possible or plausible. We could have a table with a lot of fields in it, plus, we're not showing it here, we could have a table and we could put in it, for example, we could put in a picture of an employee. And maybe those pictures were really big and would take some time to upload, for example. All right? So what we're saying is, what we're doing right here is we're creating a new employee, just like it says. And what we're saying is, when you go in, if you remember when I went in and typed in that JSON in between the curly braces, we're saying the name is whatever we typed in there for the name. The department is whatever we typed in there for the department. The salary is whatever we typed in for the salary. And the hire date is whatever we typed in for the hire date. Now, it would have been plausible, possible, maybe even better to have gone back here and put in default values for department and salary, even if it was 0 and no department. All right, just in case somebody left those off so they would have values in there. Does that make sense? All right. Then again, we're trying to do this. All right. And if we can do it, we get a 201. So if I do add a new employee in here, I didn't show you that before, but it does give you the 201 status code. If we screwed up, how would we screw up? Well, what if I had come in here and I had spelled that incorrectly? That would be an error, correct? Because it's looking for it in the request. There's nothing called naming. All right? So if that were to happen, we're assuming the problem's on our end, and we're just going to show whatever the message is. Does all that make sense? All right. Then, like I said, and I'm disappointed on this, I'm going to keep looking at it. I'd like to change this, and so instead of put, it was patch, but I've got it to work with put, which I think is better than not having it work at all for now. So again, you'll have to change yours from patch to put. And again, this may be the same as what you have. This may have changed because I changed a bunch of junk. We still got our call here to get employee. Remember, it's get employee now and not get employee ID. All right. Then I was having problems. Look on the screen here. I was saying, this is what I had here originally. I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to copy it to the clipboard, and I'm going to paste it in. I realize it's in here twice now. I'm going to get rid of this in a minute. But what I did before was I did this. I said if it's not equal to null, then just do that. But it was giving me some problems when I did that. If it was null, I wasn't telling it to do anything. So what I'm doing here, and I don't like writing code like this, but it works, I'm saying if it is null, do nothing. Open, open curly, close curly. Otherwise, do this. But the only way that this works, being a put, is you've got to do all fields. If I come up with a fix, what I'm going to try to do, all right, is I'm going to try to see if I can get the patch to work. If I can get the patch to work, I will show you the code. I will also update what I've got out on GitHub. So if you want to grab my GitHub and look at it, fine. If yours works, that's even better. All right? So we're checking here if any of these fields are null, don't do anything, but otherwise copy what was over, what we just put in for the, as far as the JSON, into the actual field. Then with our try catch, try to save what we just did. And if you can save it, show on the screen using JSON that new updated employee. Does that all make sense? All right. Then finally is the easy one, which is the delete. Again, we call get employee to get our employee to delete. And we come in here and say, again, it's an async. This is what may take time. So we're telling it right there to do a remove, and then we give the message that says employee deleted. Now, what we could do, by no means do you have to do this, but we could come back in here and, for instance, when we come in and add an employee right here, all right, so we try to do this. Could have also done this. Could have come through here and said res.json, and we could have said employee added, if we wanted to say that. I'm already showing the new added employee, so I didn't think there was a need to do that. But if you would rather do that, you can do that. Does that make sense? All right. So, like I said, there's nothing more with the delete. So let me do this. In fact, I'm just going to grab one of these and put it down here. There we go. So this was the get employee function. Again, it was previously called get employee ID. So this is the middleware that we wrote. It's the one that has the word next on the end of it. I did not change anything in here. All right, and if it makes it easier for you to read, of course, we could always have come in here and put that on multiple lines. All right, I don't know if we really have to or not, but you get the idea. And make sure you export that. So it works. Now, I look at it this way, that get all, get one, put, delete, insert. That's all 5 CRUD operations. We've got all 5 working, but I'm looking at it that there's 6, because 6 is patch. So I'm looking at it as though what I've given you is something that's 5/6 done. Does that make sense? I'm going to see if I can get that patch to work. And as I said, if I can get it to work, I'll give it to you. Not a problem. All right? Okay. So, I thought I printed these out. I guess I didn't. Let me go back and have it here, or did I put it? Okay. I think I got something in the printer, unless I didn't print it out. So I'd rather have 10 of them than none of them. So. Be right back. So you may or may not have already guessed what's coming. So I'm going to go over this with you right now. All right. You've got the hard copy. I've got the electronic copy on the screen here. So, as it says, using what we just looked at, all right, that MongoDB employee REST API as a starting point or a template, I want you to create a new app called Mongo Books API. All right? So first go in and create a Mongo Books API GitHub repo, and again, copy that line that comes in there with that git remote add origin line, so copy that to your clipboard. All right, then create a new folder on your desktop, add the server.js to it, add a folder called controllers, or if you'd rather call it routes, call it routes. I don't care. and add another one that's called models. All right? Then, as it says, do your regular stuff, your npm init to create your package.json file that should also prompt you or have in there your Git repository, so make sure you set that up first. Add the required packages. It says it should be the same as those for the one we just did. What were those for the ones we just did? Again, there were 3 of them. There was, get back to here. There was Express, there was Mongoose, and there was Body Parser. That should be all you need for this. Now, I did not say this in here. Repeat this. I did not say this, but I would like you to get to add a .git ignore file. You want to write this down? Write it down. So add a .git ignore file, which should have in it .env and node modules. So in other words, you can even copy this one if you want to from the project here. If you that's it. No. So your git ignore will be this. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. So I want you to create a .git ignore file that has these contents in it and a .env file, and yours won't be emps, it'll be books or whatever your database is called. Does that all make sense? Questions? All right. So then jumping back. All right. So your server.js file, again, should be similar. Pattern after that. Then open up the models folder, and you will have a title model.js file, an author model.js file, and a publisher model.js file. Now, because the way I'm looking at it is we're all just learning this stuff, what you'll oftentimes find is if you go into a models folder, they won't call it title model.js, author model.js, and publisher model.js. They'll just call it title.js, author.js, and publisher.js. There's not a problem with that, but then pretty soon you look and you might have 3, 4, or 5 folders with the exact same file names in there. I find that confusing. That's why I'm asking you to use the word model in your titles. All right? Then open the routes if you call it that, or controllers if you call it that, folder, and add to it the following files. So you'll have a titlescontroller.js, an authorscontroller.js, and a publisherscontroller.js. Once you fill them up and you export them, you're going to have to update the server.js file here, and you're going to have to update the server.js file for your models as well. All right? And if it's not actually for this one, this isn't really server.js, all right? That's probably going to be the appropriate controller.js file. All right? If you get confused, just ask. All right, hopefully I'll make you less confused and not more. All right, it says, I will give you a new and improved file to use as the database. I sent you that in the second email that you got today. So looking at these emails, this is what I sent you today. This is mongobooks.txt. Now, I didn't have to, but it says, use MongoBooks, etc. This one you'll probably want to just change to books if you've already got MongoBooks. Just make it books. It's fine. Then you could just basically copy in the stuff that's in here. I actually just put a single one in there so you could see an insert one and then an insert many. This should work. This is the one that I used. If it doesn't work, if there's any kind of problems, by all means, please let me know. All right? The other one that I sent you is just that employees thing that I gave you the hard copy of. All right. So the assignment, next week we're going to start on a new project, and I'm not sure how much time each day is going to take, so I'm making it due literally 2 weeks from Monday at the beginning of class. When done, as it says, upload your app to your GitHub account. So the rest of this week, the rest of today, I know I didn't lecture long, all day tomorrow and all day Friday will be lab. You've got stuff that's due this week, and now you will have this as well. All right? Again, we will start a new project on Monday that I'm working on right now. All right, I'm going to take a little break from that to see if I can get this patch to work, and if I can, that's the only way that I will break into class and just tell you that. So just to be sure, I'm going to take what I'm taping right here and I'm going to pause it in just a minute. All right, and the only way that I'll restart it, the only way that I will restart it is if I figure out what the problem is with that patch. All right, any questions on anything we've gone over today? So you should all now, either your file itself, or if you want to go and copy over my GitHub repo, you should all have a working copy of the employees MongoDB REST API, and you will start right now creating your authors. All right? There's no questions. That's it for the lecture, unless, like I said, I find a fix for this, for the patch. All right, just so you know, I just came in here and redid the patch thing. And it looks virtually almost exactly like the last one. All right? But if I do run it now, if I run it now and I put in here, so it is a patch, if I put in no for everything I don't want to change, it works. So I changed the name from I'm a janitor to I'm a custodian, and it works just fine. And while I was doing that and just loading it, I thought, well, what if I tried this? And I don't know if what I'm about to show you will work or not. All right, I've got here if it's null, do nothing. All right, but I'm going to change this to, again, if it's not null, I'm going to change all of these. So if it's not null, I'm going to tell it to do just what it was doing before. All right, and I'm going to say else, and I'm going to set it to null. Like that, equal null. I don't know if this is going to work or not. I have absolutely no idea, but I'm just kind of inverting my logic here. I don't want to have to put in null every time. I think that's ridiculous. That's right now, patch is doing absolutely no more than a regular put is. In fact, I think it's worse because I'm making you do more work. I just don't like the way that this is written, but I want to see if doing it like this will work, and I don't know if it will or not. Save that, try it again. So I want to just put in what I want to change, is what I'm saying. So, and I'll just change this to I am really a custodian. And notice I'm still getting that. It says that hire date is required. All right. Even though I've defaulted it, so what if I just put in a hire date here and that's it? So if I say hire date, and I put null in there. Took it. All right, but now look, I've got a name and I've got a hire date, but I've lost the department. See, that's not what I want because since it set it to null. So that works, but it sure as heck doesn't work the way I want it to work. All right, so I'll keep looking at it. If I find a better way, I'll let you know. Go back and reset all these to what they used to be.
Is there a problem if they were doing it by using params instead of body?
For this, but you mean .params.name or whatever?
Yeah.
Try it, and if it works, fine. Body is basically everything, so.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try it like this.